I have now been following the Norwegian Singles Approach for 7 weeks, and we have 1 week to go until the first big test of the winter training lock, the Doncaster 10K. But what can we expect to see after only 2 months of training? Anything at all? My 10K PB, which is admittedly pretty soft, stands at 48.28, and I have a goal to take 2 full minutes off that time at Doncaster. In this video, we're going to take a deeper dive into exactly what the Norwegian Singles Approach is, where it started, how it picked up traction, and the resources I've been using to help plan my interval sessions, and then how all that ties together into what we could expect to see next week. First, let us dive back into the mists of time to a fateful day, the 24th of July, 2023, deep in the mires of the forum site known as letsrun.com. A thread began titled "Modifying the Norwegian Approach to Lower Mileage." The question was a pretty simple one. Can you modify the workload of Norwegian double threshold training to better suit someone running lower mileage? The general idea here being to find a way of following a similar method but alongside a normal working life. Double threshold training is pretty hard, and it requires some logistical gymnastics if you really want to make it work, and it might leave the normal person just too tired to go about their normal working day. So, was there a way to get similar benefits without cooking yourself so hard that you can't then also take care of your day-to-day responsibilities? Enter our hero, our saviour, the man, the myth. He insists he's just a guy who likes beer and tolerates running. A man with the online alias Serpok. He posted this into the thread. And little did he know what he had started. The questions began. People wanted to know more. They wanted to understand more about this method he was using. How was he seeing such big improvements? Because there was no VO2 max work here. And as the discussion progressed, Serpok, or James as we now know him to be called, revealed further details that caused additional discussion. He wasn't even doing strides. No VO2 max. No strides, but he was still getting faster. When it became known that he was training for the 2025 London Marathon, the discussion around the method started to ramp up even more. He had been using what was now being referred to as the Norwegian Singles Approach for the best part of the last 2 years, and now he was starting to adjust that slightly as he got closer to the marathon to ensure that he had enough marathon-specific work to do well on the day. He went and ran a 2:24.08 in the V40 age category. This put him 55th place overall and 6th place in his age category. This is a huge result, really, by any metrics, and it catalyzed even more fervor around the training method. Throughout this entire process, I feel it's important to note that James has never pretended like he invented anything here. None of this information is really new. As you saw from the post, he's been upfront from the beginning that he essentially initially just copied what the older Ingebrigtsen brother Christopher was doing from what he was posting on Strava, and then with a few adjustments to bring it in line with his understanding of sweet spot training from his cycling background, we now have what everybody is referring to as the Norwegian Singles Approach. I am massively oversimplifying a lot of this. I assume you do not want to listen to me talking for hours, but effectively the Norwegian Singles Approach is sweet spot training from cycling adapted to running, in simple terms. The method is very simple. Ideally, you run every day. On 3 of those days, you run a sub-threshold interval workout. These workouts mustn't be on consecutive days. Preferably, they have a day between them. You still do a long run, but the pace you run in that long run is at an easy pace. All the running you do between your sub-threshold workouts is also at an easy pace. If we use James's initial post in the Let's Run thread as an example, Monday would be easy, Tuesday would be sub-threshold, Wednesday would be easy, Thursday would be sub-threshold, Friday would be easy, Saturday would be sub-threshold, Sunday would be long run. Very straightforward. And it's the same every week. Doesn't change. But why follow this method at all instead of a more standard VO2 max or race pace focused interval training program? As we've alluded to, the method works really well for the standard working hobby jogger. We are not elite athletes. We do not have time to focus entirely on recovery after doing a hard workout. So we need a different approach. Following this method, no single workout is going to jump your fitness up massively, but no single workout is going to put you into a hole that's hard to recover from. It's simply about stacking blocks. You stack consistent training over long periods of time and you build up a big aerobic base. Really, the primary focus of this training method is cumulative load over time, not what goes on in any individual week or any individual workout. You have to string the weeks together over months. And for most of us, this will get us most of the way towards our potential. And we might not actually ever need to even consider doing any VO2 max or specific race pace work. The overall effort level is still pretty high over any given week, but it's spread out in a way that makes it a lot more manageable for most of us to cope with. And the other big benefit of this method is if you carry it out correctly, the injury risk is really relatively low, providing you carry it out correctly. If you're patient and you don't whack up your volume and intensity to the maximum that the method suggests straight away, and if you run the intervals at the correct effort and paces. Because the workouts are all sub-threshold, the load impact remains low enough to minimize problems in the Achilles, the knees, the hips. Obviously they still might happen, but the risk is reduced. Now let's take a look at the interval workouts themselves. In essence, it sort of doesn't matter exactly what you do, so long as all the intervals are performed at sub-threshold. But obviously it's much easier to follow a framework. The very basic framework for the interval sessions is as follows. One session consists of 3 longer reps at 10 to 12 minutes or 3 kilometers, depending on your pace. One session consists of 4 to 6 medium reps of 6 to 8 minutes or 2 kilometers, depending on your pace. And one session consists of 8 to 12 reps of 3 to 4 minutes or 1 kilometer if your pace is fast enough. The rest period between these reps is the same throughout, 60 seconds. This rest can be taken static, walking or jogging. It doesn't matter all that much. Now, how do you work out which paces to run at? Thankfully, if you're looking to get started with the method now, we basically have some plug and play resources available for us to use for generating your ideal pace ranges for these workouts without needing to test your lactate levels. The website lactrace.com has a Norwegian Singles calculator that enables you to input a recent race or time trial and generate the suggested pace range for each workout. You pick which workout you're going to do on each of your chosen workout days and get the workouts programmed into your watch or however you normally follow your interval workouts. Then away you go. If you want slightly more complex statistics, you can go to the website sweetspot.run, which is pretty similar to Lactrace, but it just has a few more stats available. Once you've got your workout paces, you pretty much repeat that for weeks and months. And no, it's not sexy. The only changes you're going to be making to the workouts is to maybe add in reps, extend reps, or change the paces of your reps in line with your progression. And you'll get an idea if you need to change any of these things by doing time trials or races relatively regularly. And that's all there really is to most of the process. There are a couple of things we do need to take into consideration. Firstly, it is suggested that you do some kind of race effort or maybe a time trial at least every couple of months, a bit more often if you want to. And then you can use the data from the time trial or the race to have a clearer idea of what paces you need to be running in your intervals. It's also suggested that your overall sub-threshold volume should amount to 20 to 25% of your time on feet running each week. In the beginning, it will probably need to be less than that so that you can give yourself time to adjust to the method. So to be on the safe side, you probably want to be picking the lower rep ranges and the shortest rep option for each workout. And then you can add in reps or extend reps as you feel comfortable with the volume each week. As with anything, just try and run within yourself and build it up to minimize your risk of injury until you get to that 20 to 25%. And that's it really, but what does this mean for my upcoming 10K race? Simply put, I have not been following this method for long enough to have a clear grasp of exactly how I'm progressing. Doncaster 10K is a test. I'm going to run it as hard as I can and then use that data to inform my training going forward. And the purpose of these videos is really to document the whole process. We want to be able to see how things are unfolding at each stage, and I want to be able to look back all the way to the beginning and get a full picture of how this method really plays out in the long run. Up until now, I've really only been adjusting to the method. I added in 90 minutes of sub-threshold volume, and I also built my mileage back up to my pre-ultramarathon levels. If I get a good result at Doncaster 10K, we'll basically just be able to put it down to the fact that I've been running 100 kilometers every week for a few weeks, and I added in 90 minutes more intensity than I've been doing for most of the rest of this year. I'm really now only just getting started. My sub-threshold volume isn't yet at that 20 to 25%, but it was more important for me to get my normal running volume back up to the 100k where I prefer it to be, and then add in the intensity from there. If you've done this method the other way around and you've got up to your 20 to 25% faster than I have, then you'll probably be seeing faster progression than I have. I'm thinking a few months ahead. I have a lot of goals next year that require time on feet, so that's sort of where my head is. And I really want to reiterate that this method requires patience. I haven't seen any miracles happen in the last 7 weeks, and I did not expect to. All I really know for sure is that I feel the best I have ever felt during training for anything. I am really excited to see what happens going forward. I am really excited to see what happens as we get closer to that 20 to 25% of subthreshold volume. Really excited. Have I mentioned that I'm excited? Regardless of the result at Doncaster, I will begin increasing the amount of subthreshold volume I'm doing. And I'll do that until I reach the limit of the basic framework for this method. Once we get to that point, I'm not 100% sure what's going to happen, but I'm bringing you all along for the ride. All right, next up is Doncaster 10K. That video will be up next Monday. If you're watching this further into the future, then there'll be a playlist linked in the pinned comment, or it'll be on the screen here somewhere. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.